to feel that way of not letting, like, you have to let go in order to focus on the other person.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
What else you got for me?
Thank you. That's awesome. So the next question I had is about being assertive and taking charge. And I've struggled my whole life with with assertiveness because I've always been a big people pleaser and I always sort of put other people's feelings before my own.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier for me if I'm teaching or if I've been established as a person of authority, I don't have a problem, taking charge of the room, but in other more day-to-day situations, I struggle both in my personal life and in acting and in a professional sense with sort of asserting myself. And if I have a really strong opinion about something, I'll have no problem saying that opinion, but the second someone else is like, well, this is what I want because this, I'll be like, okay, yes, 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 kind of thing. And so I was just wondering how to practice being more confrontational and direct in my personal life and then applying it into a kind of more professional setting.
Yeah, so it really goes back to the same concept here. So if you can turn this thing back to love and say, how can I be the most loving? A lot of times it's not being a pushover. And so we think that would make everybody happy, like, oh, us trying to like make everyone happy would be the best thing. It's not, and you know that, like, instinctually, you know. So I think the best way to approach this is well, you can start from an I don't know perspective. So you present an idea, let's just say, and you have a strong opinion on whatever it is, and you say, okay, I'm not sure, but this is kind of what I was thinking. And then if somebody else tries to come in and bulldoze you and say, okay, but that's not going to work, like it's going to be this way or that way, I'd say question. So especially when you know they're wrong, just assume that they're right. Assume that you've missed something. So I don't know. We have to come up with some kind of a weird example. So you've decided that in your troupe you're going to you're going to just show's going to end, go black, and you guys are off the stage. And this other person, their opinion is like 100%. You have to bow. Without a bow, it's not a show, right? And so like you're having this little argument, right? So all you would do is you just ask. You'd go, okay, so why? Like, I'm just curious, why is that important to you? And if you get down to the meat of it, potentially what you're going to find is not that they're right, but that they have some sort of an idea in there that's going to make your idea better, and that your idea was actually flawed. So I think sometimes when people come in and they come back at you really hard, it's because they're feeling uncomfortable and they don't know how to express it, and there's something about the way you're going about something that just makes them feel a little bit off. And so rather than allowing yourself to take it personally, and this is a huge deal, taking things personally, like rather than allowing that to happen, you want to stand third party and you want to assume that there's a better answer. And this is great improv too, right? I mean, this is a reason why improv and acting, they connect to life so easily, is, so you take this idea and you go, okay, what is one of the main principles of improv? That would be that there's always a better answer, right? And we're always going for best answer. So we're not trying to come up with the easiest, fastest, just whatever answer. We're going for what's best answer. Is there a way that we can squeeze something extra out of this idea? And so here you have an idea, and if you think of it that way, like, hey, I'm presenting this idea. Now someone's coming in and they want to squash it. You cannot be a pushover. You cannot just say, oh, yeah, your idea's great. Like, that doesn't work. But you shouldn't also just like deny them, because then you're going to get into a fight. So being assertive and being willing to stand up for yourself does not mean fight. It doesn't mean come in and you have to be totally confrontational. It just means that you're not going to just take what somebody else says at face value without getting to their why. So then if you finally get down to this person's why, I mean, why is it that somebody could possibly want to bow at the end of a show and have it be really important to them?
Because they want recognition and to to have the applause.
Totally. And why this time? So and then why? And you get down to it. And guess what? So like this person, this time, it turns out their uh their mom or dad was going to come for the very first time, and they
Oh.
just, yeah, exactly. And and you didn't know that, and they weren't going to tell you because they're too prideful. And you get down to the whole like bottom of it, and you're like, okay, I still believe that as a troupe, there's a professionalism here that I've decided that I think is going to be best for us, and I would really like to try it because I think that it could be better for us in the long run. Having said that, dude, your mom or dad's gonna be there. Like we're like we bowing. Not only bowing, but we're gonna be lifting you on our shoulders, and then we're gonna bow.
Oh.
Whatever. So you can, but you can't get there until you've like questioned and really tried to get to the meat of what's up. Because I got to tell you, like usually when someone's being confrontational with you, there's something else going on, and it's not even about the thing you're talking about. There's something deeper there.
Yeah.
So your goal is to get there in a calm way, and not to say yes, like, oh, I'm just going to back off my idea, but also at the same time assume your idea is wrong, flawed, and can be better.
Thank you. That's awesome. That was such a sweet story. I know it was a hypothetical, but I was like, oh, like I was gonna cry. I was like, their parents are coming to the show.
Yeah, no, it's funny because this happens a lot. And I
Hmm.
mean, I did make up that story, but the idea of there's, people are so complex, and we all have our own backstories, and we are characters in our own life in these plays that we call life, and I just believe that. And so when someone's coming at you, it's never about you. It just isn't. When you're having a conversation with somebody, and all of a sudden like they're like all intense, you have to realize there's something going on with them.
Yeah.
And most of us, or all of us, are too selfish, really, to be thinking about you. Like it's not about you. That's just the truth.
Yeah. And I definitely resonate a lot with like taking things personally because like I'm very empathetic naturally and like I feel a lot of the things that other people feel.
Hmm.
So whenever I'm around someone that like either someone that it's like heightened if it's someone that I love or that I'm close to, but with anyone, if something's off, whether they're tired, they had a weird day, they're just stressed, whatever, if like I don't know what it is, but I can feel that their energy's off, I have a like I will just assume that it's about me and I'll be like, oh no, like or I assume it's worse than it is. Like I'm like notorious for like being on the phone with my friends and being like, hey, like, are you okay? Do you need to talk? And they're like, I'm just super tired, Phoebe. Like, I'm good though.
But you
Cause
know
I,
what? But you know what? A lot of times, Phoebe, they're lying to you. Sorry to tell you. Like, no, because that sensitivity you have, you're actually accurate. Like when you can sense things like that, I'm going to tell you that there's a reason they're tired. And that's because there's something else going on. But the problem is, it doesn't always help to dive in there.
mm-hmm.
And this is something I've had to learn because I'm hypersensitive too. I can feel those energies, and if I'm not careful, I can wear everybody else's energy on my shoulders, and I used to do that a lot. And if you can imagine a big acting studio like ours, where we have a lot of personalities coming in there here, a lot of people's days happening, and for many people, the highlight of their week is coming to our studio. And why is that? Because they unload all that junk during the class. And so if you just imagine like everybody unloading, you take 30 people times 3 classes times 4 days a week, and you're like, that's a lot of junk being dumped into our studio. And so we've had to work really hard at creating these bubbles around ourselves to be able to help them release, but not actually carry it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you sense something up with your friend, and your friend goes, Phoebe, I'm just tired, like whatever, okay, and you can let that go, and then you might even get better at not asking certain things, because sometimes they're just going to bring it up on their own later.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a question for you. Why are they tired?
Right.
What did they
Yeah.
do the night before?
Mm-hmm.
Why did they do the thing they did the night before? What's going on with them on the inside that's a little bit broken, that's causing them to make these decisions, that's causing them to be a little off? The truth is there usually is something more to it. But it's not your job to fix everybody at all times. And I like to think, if you're living your life the right way and you're in a good state, people are going to come to you and they're going to be curious and they're going to ask you the right questions, and that gives you a platform to speak from because they've asked for the advice.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've definitely always struggled with giving unsolicited advice as well, and I'm resonating a lot with everything you're saying, just wanting to fix everything and being like, people being like, I'm tired, of me being like, no, but like, okay, what's really going on? Like, let's figure it out. And it's like, if someone doesn't want to talk about it in that moment, there's nothing that can change that right then,
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's as easy as letting them know that you're there, and you're open to talk if they want to. But then, because the thing is, ideally, if you can really work at this, and I would call it a skill because it's a discipline to do. If you can, and I'm going to clarify here, I am still working on this. I know it's a weakness and something that I'm working really, really hard at. But I think ideally, you don't allow yourself to get too high, too low. And so if somebody comes in and they're feeling a certain way, you can let them know that you're there for them without letting it affect you. So, for the people who don't understand it, who like when they first get around me and they see me deal with things a certain way, it can be confusing almost. And they don't understand how I can be in a situation and then be over it so quickly. And I call it compartmentalizing. So, Joey, you mind if I use you as a rando example that's not even true?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so let's just say that Joey comes in this morning, and his job was to set up the show, which it wasn't his job, and that wasn't the case. But let's just say that was. And he's late. And no call, no show till just a few minutes before the show. And then he's rushing around in a bad mood, kind of putting things together or whatever, and we're late. Okay, let's say that that's a hypothetical situation. Now, that could frustrate me. Now, my personality goes like this. I'm only frustrated if you don't walk in the room and say sorry. That's me. If Joey walks in late and goes, dude, I'm so sorry. It's totally my bad. How can I help? Like, we're going to be good. And then we'll talk afterward, but it's going to be really positive. If he tries to cover it up like it's no big deal, that's when I'm going to get like that bothers me, because I don't like when people are trying to cover things up, and because I feel like it's essentially lying. So there's that piece there. But now what's interesting is when the show's over, I'm already on to the next thing. And then we're like, I know that I love Joey separately, and him being late or lying or what, it has nothing to do with that. It will never affect that. That will never go away. So I can easily be moving on to the next thing, ask him to prepare for something else in a really calm state of mind. And it doesn't mean that I'm over this other thing. Until we talk about it, like, that's got to be dealt with. But I have now been earning the ability to not let that affect the next thing that I do. So the next thing I do, I'm already on it, and I've compartmentalized this other deal. And it's like, yeah, we're going to have to deal with that at some point, but I'm not going to emotionally be stuck there all day.
Do you have any advice for how to start working on doing that and trying to separate yourself from something when moving on to the next thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just practice. I mean, so you have to be, it goes back to this idea of not getting too high, too low. So I think sometimes what happens is we let ourselves get so excited about something, or we build something up, that it's really easy to be let down. Or, we make things out to be more than they're going to be or whatever, and we start to think about the future, and we start to let ourselves get depressed, and we get really low. And instead of letting yourself get too high or too low, you try to keep yourself in this middle ground. And I'm not saying you're not allowed to get excited, and I'm not saying you're not allowed to be sad, of course. But in general, sometimes what we allow ourselves to just go to this state before, when we're really, there's no reason to go there, and we exert all this energy, and then all of a sudden, like, it's you get let down.
Mm-hmm.
So I would think of it sort of logically and think, okay, like this, it's, well, you know what, it goes back to, it's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can just acknowledge that it's not about you, then it's easy to compartmentalize it. And you go, okay, like we had this little like skirmish this morning, and if I'm willing to be wrong, then like then I can approach this in a state where I'm not angry at you. So let's put it this way. Let's go back to the Joey situation. Let's pretend that he's late and was a grump and didn't apologize and was trying to cover it up. Okay, so what am I mad about?
His lack of apology and taking responsibility.
That's it. I'm not mad about the thing. I'm mad about those two things, right? So that's my point of view. He's going to have his own point of view. If I can assume the best in the other human being, assume that there was probably something else going on, when we get a chance to talk about it, I'm not going to be mad, ideally, and I'm going to just sort of like question. Then if I find out that, gosh, I don't know, he had to take his brother to the hospital that morning, and I didn't know. And he didn't want to tell me because he didn't want to ruin my emotions right before our show. And so he was doing everything in his power to keep his cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now I find out, holy moly, like not only is it okay, but he literally did everything he possibly could to try to lift me up in every way possible. And he forgot to say sorry. Like that's a, you know, if I'm willing to think that might be an answer, then I can come into that situation without being mad and accusatory and saying you're wrong automatically. And then at the same time, we can then rewind and say, all right, no matter what, there's going to be a better answer that we can both get to.
Mm-hmm.
And then you try to do some exploring as well, and you think, okay, like, was I making assumptions, and was I, did I allow my energy to affect his or whatever? And if he's late, could I assume that he's hurting, or could I assume that he had a bad night, or could I assume that he's embarrassed by it? And could there have been a way that I might have helped lift him up rather than, making him feel worse than he already felt or something? So in every scenario, you're looking at, let me be honest with you, and here's the situation. And then hopefully the other person, if you approach it that way, will be open and honest. And then they can go, okay, I get that. I get that that's a thing for you. I get that I should do that anyway as a person. Like that's a good habit to get into, to just say sorry and admit whatever, and I'm there. And then and then on the reverse side, I can also say sorry for what I did and how I treated you and blah blah blah. So you come into every scenario like that with going like, I can give. I don't even need to be right. It's not about that. It's just about us trying to prevent this happening again.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And my mother actually is so good at giving people the benefit of the doubt and just always assuming that exactly what you're saying, that there's something more going on, and that like my mom is such a kind woman, and if anyone makes any mistakes, that's always her first thought is like, well, they probably have something going on, like it's probably, and I should listen to her more about that, because she's a very smart woman and totally preaches all the stuff that you're saying. And
yeah, that's awesome. And so you taking that and you go, okay, that's such a huge like wake up call for you and anybody, because when you figure out, you know what, my parents do have some really good traits, and I should listen, and I should pay attention, and I should see the things that they're doing that are really impacting the people around them in a positive way, and our parents are not perfect, none of them are. And so for you, I think kids go through this phase where they realize their parents are not a superhero, You know, it happens, and then you get like mad, and then you get rebellious, and then you know, you get untrusting, and like all these things I think happen to kids. But then there's a full circle that comes around
Mhm.
where you start to realize, wow, they've accomplished a lot, and wow, they were in my shoes at one point, and they were thinking the same thoughts, and they somehow got from where I am to where they are. Like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then it gets even further, by the way. It gets really deep. If and when you ever have kids, that you have this mind-blowing experience to go, oh my gosh, like I was that to them. And you just, it is like, for me, the experience was just, I cried, I forgave, and I thought to myself, I'll never be mad about my parents ever again, and I'm never gonna like blame them or be angry at them or whatever, because I just forgive them, because they, at one point, they held me in their arms the way I'm holding this baby in my arms, and they were trying to do their best. Now, they failed all over the place, and I can point them out, but there's no reason to. You know, they're human, and they were trying their best to raise me. They were trying their best to do good for me. And as long as I approach it from that perspective, I can say, yeah, Mom, Dad, you're not perfect, 100%. But look at all the great things you did for me. Look at all the ways you set me up. And then I just focus on that only. And I choose to also acknowledge where they are weak and where I might have picked up some of those bad habits, and cut that stuff off right away.
Yeah. That I just teared up for a second. That was very sweet. And your kids are wonderful, Matt. I miss them. They're so cute.
Oh, I'm so blessed. I got to tell you, just you're right. I'm just going to say, um, Leanne and I have three of the most amazing children in the world, and um, you know, we've gotten closer through this whole thing, and it's been hard on them, and it's been hard on all of us. But you watch your kids try to understand and experience these things, and they don't really get it, but at the same time they do. And you know, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I never grew up. This never happened in my lifetime before, right? So this is the first time. So I was never faced with, as a kid, I mean, imagine this, where grandma and grandpa came over and I'm not allowed to hug them. Like, I'm not
Hmm.
allowed. It's weird, you know? So like Leanne's mom and dad, every now and then they'll bring dinner over, and they just want to like surprise us. They're very sweet people. So they show up with dinner, and they'd walk in the house, but like we're not allowed to touch. You know,
Aw,
we got to kind of stay 6 feet apart. Her mom is a nurse, and so, you know, she's exposed to a lot of things, and so yeah, so you just watch your kids, and then all of a sudden they get used to it, and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's good, you know, um, and
yeah.
and they're dealing with all this stuff on their end. I mean, they've had some of their best friends, their playmates, come over to the house, and um, they would have a play date, and they did it through the window.
Oh.
So we have like a screen, we've got the window, and their friends sat 3 feet on one side, they sat 3 feet on the other, and they literally were like playing with toys and sort
That's
of
so
talking to
sweet.
each other, yeah, and interacting. But it's strange. Like, it's a strange thing that they had to go through that. You know, I never had to go through that as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I literally saw my aunt and my cousin for the first time since I'd been home. We met them at a park and we were standing far apart and we couldn't hug and I just started sobbing. And
Yeah.
I that was my main thought was I was like, this is so hard for me. I cannot be imagine being like, 6, 7, 8 years old and just like I mean, I don't really know what they're thinking, but I imagine it's hard to understand all the reason behind it because like I intellectually understand why I can't hug them, but it still feels so draining and so just scary and alien. So
And then
that,
I wonder if when we sort of go back, if some of these kids are going to be feeling to themselves like, are they doing something wrong? But by
uh-huh.
hugging, you know, because they're going to be like, I don't think you should be touching me, you know.
Because they were told not to for so long.
Right,
Exactly.
right, yeah. So it's a strange thing. I also think us as artists, we've
Mhm.
we've worked really hard over years and years and years of training to sort of break down some of the walls that we've put up as human beings, and so we we do hug, you know, and we do share our emotions, and we do tell people that we love them and things like that. And so all of a sudden to have that stripped away completely it's weird, for us. And it's hard because we worked so hard to get to the point where, like, I can hug another man and like, it doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter, anything. Like, I could just be like, almost to a stranger, I could find a way to love them, and if they need a hug, I could give it to them without me being self-conscious. And that's something I've had to work at. I wasn't always able to do that, and now I can just be like, bear hug, baby, let's do this thing. And now all of a sudden, like, that particular thing's been taken away for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be funny. All the actors of the world are just going to, like, we're going to lift up this quarantine, and we're all going to just hug for a while, I think.
100%. And I've always been a big hugger. Like, I've been known for it my whole life.
You do give a good hug, Phoebe, I got to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's especially hard to not be able to hug, because I get a lot of my happiness from hugs,
Yeah. So then what do you do, right? How do you overcome that?
Yeah. Well, I've talked on the phone more, and you text and you call and you say virtual hug. There's like a
virtual hug. There you go. Right. Woo! Okay, good.
I got a quick thing. When Phoebe was on Chaos, Brian had us do this exercise where we all had to, like, send a GIF that, like, told us about our personality so we could get to know each other better, because there was, like, new troupe members, and Phoebe's was sending virtual hug, and there was, like, a loading bar at the bottom, and it was just this, like, girl in a sweater going like this. It was so funny.
I remember that. I love that GIF.
So the reason I got so excited was I remembered one of your other questions here, and I want to address this before we wrap for the day. So you were asking about long-form improv,
Mm-hmm.
and you were presented with this problem, which is, how do you cut a long-form improv scene? How do you edit a long-form improv scene within the Zoom format, correct, or within a video style format? And you just nailed it on the head. You have to verbalize it.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to find new ways. But what's interesting is this is going to make you a better improviser in a lot of ways, because sometimes verbalizing moves very specifically on the stage is the best answer, rather than a hard swipe, or rather than a push or a pull or any of those moves. Sometimes coming out and saying specifically, this scene cuts or this scene pauses as we come up on this specific thing for this specific reason at this specific time of day. Like, you can make these really, really interesting cuts that fuel your team and give them a lot of information and things to work with. So
I love that.
Yeah. So here we go, and we're like, okay, you've got a let's just say a mother-daughter scene going on, okay? And you want to cut that scene, or you have an idea to present something else. So there's a mother-daughter scene going on, and you're ready to cut via video. So then you'd have to find a way to make sure audience knows that now I'm coming out of this moment to cut. But you'd say, now we cut to the next morning. It's 5:30 a.m. Coffee's on the table. Let's say the wife's name, whatever it is, mom and the child's dad are sitting at the table. Boom. And now all of a sudden the actors just kind of reset themselves, and now they're here. Right? And as you just were able to cut and give a lot of information and go, okay, so I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you it'd be interesting if we cut from what they were just saying to now a conversation with mom and dad, and why are they up so early? And why did they pour coffee? So now all of a sudden you've given these gifts to your team, and they're going to get a chance to deal with it.
That's awesome. That's so helpful. So my only other question would be, if you were doing a montage and you wanted to do like a sweep and start over completely brand new, would you maybe for the edit, like how would you say like blackout, or would you just say like new scene, we open on, and like describe, or like, I don't know, how would you go about when it's not like a transition move, but you're totally ending it? Yeah,
I think the same way. So I think so So you could just say, you know what you need. You just have to. I think every troupe and every show should just have its own rules that everybody obeys, and some of it will be trial and error, because I like. There's something about blackout I like, but at the same time, I wonder if that would confuse an audience and they would think show's over.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it might just say, scene ends, and then what does your troupe do, right? So it might be like and this scene ends, and then maybe everybody leaves frame. So and this scene ends. Yo, what's going down?
Hey dog, what's up?
Just chilling, bro.
Yeah, here in the core.
What's that, dog?
The core, short for quarantine. Just hanging in the core.
Yo, man, I never heard of the core.
No, man, it's awesome. You gotta get inside. It's what all everybody's doing now. All the cool dogs are hanging inside in the core.
I'm invited in the core? Cause, like,
Yeah, you're invited, but it's like alone. Like you gotta go in your house, but like you gotta know all the cool dogs are doing it. That's what my dad says.
like nobody ever told me about the core, so I'm feeling kind of left out. Like,
Well,
who else doing it? Like Jimmy's not doing it, right?
Jimmy's doing it. I don't know what to tell you, man.
For
Jimmy's
real, dog?
Jimmy's in the core.
How come I never heard about the core?
But I didn't think I needed to vocalize about the core. I thought you were just gonna hear it from the group threads.
No, man, I've been showing up. I've been going. I've been showing up to the meetings, and nobody shows up to the meeting.
You've been going to the meeting every week?
Yeah, but nobody's been coming, and I thought, you guys didn't like me anymore.
No, man, we like you. We're just all in the core. You got to get inside. Get with it.
You keep saying the core, but I'm like, how do I get into the core but then be by myself? Like, that's weird, right? Like,
no, it's about a mindset, man. You go in. So listen, dude, you go inside, you close your eyes, and you think, I'm in the core, and that's all you got to do.
But where is it? Like, where do I go? Because I'll go right now if you guys are all there.
Listen, man, listen. Come here.
All right.
The core is everywhere. It's all around you.
The core is everywhere?
Yeah, it's in your heart. It's in your mind. All you got to do is get inside, and it's happening.
So I go to the core inside myself, and then I'm gonna find you guys there?
Exactly.
But where do I go? Is there like an address?
Man, you just go home. You just gotta go home. That's all there is to it.
I've been going to my house every day. You guys ain't there. I'm telling you. Like, I've been there. You're not there.
Listen, I don't know what to tell you. We are there in your heart. So all you gotta do is get in this mindset, and it'll all just fall into place, man.
So I go to the core. Do I ask, is there like a bouncer? Is there somebody I talk to? Is there anybody that I have? Yeah, there is?
Yeah, the bouncer is yourself, man.
I'm the bouncer?
Yeah, you gotta look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, man, 2 tickets for the core, and then you gotta step aside and let yourself in.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to Matt's character in the mirror trying to get into the core. and then that's how I would do it,
Uh-huh.
So now, like, through experimentation, we found, like, oh, this could be a fun way to do it, and you'd play scenes in different ways. And then I would record it, too, and watch it back and look at which things looked sloppy. I would imagine right off the bat, sometimes players might rush.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be really quick to go, oh, and cut, and sort of speed through a moment instead of taking your time and realizing that an audience has to keep up with us. But that's it. I mean, I think that would be one way of handling it. But just understand that whatever you say, an audience might take at face value, and so you'll have to just experiment and figure out, like, what is our thing, And again, I have said from the well, not from the beginning, from about 2 weeks in, when I had these like light bulbs go off for me as an instructor, I was like, we get to work in a way that's groundbreaking, and that's exciting. So think about this, Phoebe. There was a time when a swipe on an improv stage didn't exist, and then they made it up, right? So now we're all gonna figure out what is a swipe, you know, and it could be like, you know, like I don't know, like you get to try a bunch of different new things and go, all right, like what's gonna work, what doesn't work, and then you're a part of the process of learning how to improvise in this way, which, by the way, will never go away. Mm-hmm. So just because we go back to stage doesn't mean that every now and then we're not going to want to improvise in this way. Mm-hmm. Like, just think about it. You and I could do a 2-person show anytime from now on, because now all of a sudden our minds have been opened up to the possibility that's a possibility.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So we're all back, and you're back in Chicago, and it's 3 years from now, and you get an email from me, and I'm like, hey, you want to do a 2-person show, Chaos Comedy, 3 weeks from now, and you're like, yeah, sounds great. I'm like, cool. And then we've got a full audience here watching on the screen, you know, and I won't even be here. Like I'd rather be at my house, or maybe I'm even like traveling that day, and they're coming and just watching us improvise in this way. And it would be really engaging and fun because we have invented the format and we decided how it is.
Yeah.
So it's a total challenge, but it's really, really exciting to think that there isn't a rule. So I get to sort of make the rules, and then the key here is to be willing to be wrong and to be always looking for best answer. And going, okay, like this is an option, that's an option, and let's try both. Let's see what feels right. And you know, don't be a pushover or whatever. And if something's not working, you got to admit it. You know. Yeah. So if you get kickback from one of your teammates, and let's say they want to cut a certain way, and then you say, hey, that wasn't working, and they're like, well, that's the way we're doing it. Then it goes back to that same answer where you're like, you got to question it and go, okay, so you want to do it this way. I'm trying to figure out why you want to do it this way. Why do you think it's better? When I was in the scene, here's how I felt. It felt rushed to me in this way. I watched back the tape, and it looked rushed to me. And a lot of times what'll happen is you'll find out, like, just from doing certain things like that the other person didn't do the same work you did. So you can get wins that way too. So I'd be like, yeah. So when I watched the tape back, you know, this is what I noticed between this time and this time. What did you see when you watched it back during that time? I'm like, oh, I didn't watch the tape, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I mean, do you really think that you can say for sure that you like it that way better? Because if you haven't seen it, then how would you possibly know? Win. All right, Phoebe. What else we got here? I think we might have hit all the questions there.
Yeah, I had one more question that was a little less meaty, and I was just wondering.
Less meaty, is that what you said?
Less meaty.
Oh.
Like less substance, I guess.
Okay, yeah. Give me the fluffy question.
My fluffy question was, I was just wondering if you had tips for staying active once it gets hot outside, because I just really enjoy biking and going on walks and that kind of thing, and I'm nervous about staying moving without having it be able to be outside. And I know it's a privilege to be able to go on walks and bike rides outside in the first place, so I don't mean to complain about not being able to in the summer. But.
Yeah, no. So here's the deal. There's just no escaping it. I am a firm believer that Arizona is rough. It's a rough place to live in the summer. It's the most beautiful place to live most of the year. And then when we get to our 3 months of summer, it's pretty rough. And so I guess my answer is wake up earlier. Mm-hmm. You know, that's always an option for you. And believe it or not, there's a time for about 3 or 4 weeks when 3 a.m. is still pretty hot outside. It really is. Like there's a time when it doesn't get below 90.
Wow.
And you're like, how is this possible right now? You know, but at that time at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you just make the choice to adjust, and I don't know why everybody doesn't do this, by the way, it makes perfect sense to me. If I were to live in Arizona and it's summertime, what is the worst time of day?
Middle of the day?
Totally. So that's when I sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I just adjust. So I stay up later. I get up earlier, and then I take my big like a 4-hour siesta when it's super miserable outside, and I couldn't be doing anything anyway. So I guess one of the things is you just adjust. It's sort of like quarantine. I was joking with my wife about it. I was like, we're coming out of quarantine and going back into quarantine as Arizonans. You know, like I'm really not worried about it because we're not going to be socializing all that much anyway. So yeah, that would be my thought. And then, you know, it's just like anything else where it takes discipline. It takes a willingness and a desire to do the things that you know are good for you. And so it all comes back to your why. So I hike, I go on walks, I do these things, and it's like, all right, like I like doing that stuff, but why am I doing it? I'm also doing it for my health. I'm doing it for my mental state. I'm doing it for this or that. So therefore, I'm going to find other ways. So whether that means, you know, you set yourself another little tiny random goal where you do a few push-ups, or, you know, you start like some, you know, exercise routine at home that you can watch on the TV, and then, you know, just you find ways to supplement the same type of activity, ideally, and so it's just like quarantine. Like you find your new normal, you know, because it's tough. Like the Arizona summer is tough, but I mean it's really, it is very similar to the idea of a quarantine where you have to go, okay, like I have to adjust my life slightly. Because if you think about it, like the last couple months, there hasn't been probably a more beautiful place to live than here.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, and that's why it killed our economy so much, is like this is the time that everyone's out spending money and everyone just wants to be out and doing things. But at least we've been able to walk, and at least we've been able to go outside and stuff, and it's just been gorgeous, right? So now all of a sudden that's not the case. But guess what? That's every year, you know?
Yeah.
So.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful to remember.
Yeah. Phoebe, it was awesome talking to you this morning.
This is Phoebe, a.k.a. Chicago. You want to let them know where they can find her?
Yeah, I do. So this is Phoebe Kozinets, Kozinets, and you can find her at Phoebe Kozinets on Instagram. That's at PhoebeKozinets. It's hard to say and hard to spell, as they say. She's an amazing improviser. She's a teacher. You can tap into the things that she's doing. We highly are huge supporters of Phoebe. She's been a part of our program for a long time. I know she's taken a lot of what she's learning here and spreading the love, spreading the message to other people. So join her in her improvisation element. If she has shows, are you gonna have any shows?
Probably yes, but I don't have info yet. But get that Instagram, and there will be info.
Good. You guys should have shows. You know, we're gonna be putting up more shows here. As a matter of fact, let me just ask you now. I got you. Let me put you on the spot. You want to be on a show? You want to be on a Chaos Comedy show?
Yeah, I would love that very much.
Let's do that. Let's plan it. Yeah, we've been wanting to do another improv show. So by the way, it's the weirdest thing. Like one of our biggest views on YouTube is our Boondock show that we did radio style during quarantine. So we've been wanting to do another show. We've just been so busy with trying to get all this other technology stuff going that we haven't had the time, or we didn't make the time. So we're very excited to get the improv back going and going regularly. I'd love to do a show a day, like literally. Like that's how my spirit is telling me to fly. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching Mornings with Matt. I will stop being a dork for the moment and go be a dork not on the air.
Thanks for listening to Mornings with Matt. Please like, subscribe, and follow us at Deering Acting Studio to keep up with the latest content. For more information on classes, private lessons, or professional development coaching, visit www.deeringstudio.com.